Yeah, so this is close to money talk. I can't really walk around the way I'd like to unless I carry this thing on some sort of a chair. So I'm gonna start looking at a wall and try to get this done. It's not gonna be very long, but it'll be about money. So they wanted to know about God, right? And they also wanted to know about the history of God. And they asked me the right way, so I'm gonna tell them a little bit of what I can tell them. One, it was a name I gave myself when I was about 4 million years old, just 4 million years old. And I knew I could get away with it because no one knew what God would mean. I knew what all sounds meant, so it didn't matter whether you're making something up or not. As you say, "Kalantwa," like I know what you mean, right? Yeah, like you're trying to do something that's so what you're intending and what you literally mean and all that sort of stuff, like whether that's the right word for it or whether you want to sound different. Like I'd have all the information immediately, so I didn't really need to like learn languages. It's hard to get there again because spiritual reasons. I was sort of saying there's some sort of spiritual network that surrounds us at all times that makes things like a suggestion. Yeah, yeah, maybe you could try like moving something with your mind. No, it won't work. Too bad, right? Like that's a spiritual reality, not a physical reality, which people have to start addressing as realistically as possible. People are already trying to do that on some levels, but some people are just completely ignorant and trying to like force an old-fashioned approach to philosophy and logic onto everything they hear. So there's nothing to update with them. They just simply hear something and just use the old system to poo-poo it or thumbs up it. So just the old system, old system, old system. There's no way to upgrade their system. There's no software update they'll accept, except from maybe people they think aren't me. But I sort of come up as me, and then explain that that's me too. They'll say, "Oh, maybe he wasn't actually that great." Like they have to be committed to a life that depends upon being blockheaded. Anyway, so yeah, it was back then, and I also knew music was going to be very important. And basically, I used to make money using music. God is a musician. That's what they don't seem to understand. Yes. A musician is very different from what you hear today. What you hear today is that people are trying to make a product that fits a certain kind of like expectation. For example, jazz, like the purest kind of music you find, is supposed to be spontaneous. Like you just maybe like kicked out somehow, but where your kicking was like a certain kind of figure on the instrument, which didn't hurt the instrument at all. Then you can say you're a jazz musician, right? I like to mention that guy because he doesn't feel like he wants to mention himself in a record like today. But yeah, he makes music that's very like spontaneous. We actually practices and stuff, but it goes on. So it seems like that's what happens in jazz. Not really anymore. Now, if you hear something that like sounds like it should go a certain way, if it doesn't go that way, you get disappointed. That seems to be the game of music, how to like predict what happens next. So you have like a lot of easy to predict stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like my own music is not that easy to predict. That's the first thing came to mind. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Na 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 da 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 da. It goes on, right? So you hear it repeats a little bit. Like the beginning repeats, but the end will change, right? So if you just feel like you need something that's kind of familiar, that's the beginning. You want something that sort of like doesn't like tire you out by sort of exactly. It's supposed to be a little invigorating. That the end is not exactly the same thing you heard each time. You're not trying to memorize a new word, for example, in a language. You're trying to be like experience like it's just like saying yes, that's the way to put on your shoes. Absolutely, that's the way boots get put on. Like you can see that you can sort of repeat the same thing over and over and end up creating a story about boots. It's hard to explain, but literally that's the idea. You can sort of stay in a certain kind of locus or a certain kind of area and like say it the same way but different ways. Anyway, so that's what I was doing as a musician, making money. My family doesn't really want to explain more about this than they actually I have to, but I'm not supposed to be making money for my family. I'm supposed to be being taken care of. And that I had to make money for my family ever since I was that young is really strange to a lot of my children. But the answer is I'm just really terribly good at this, and I had to do it to save every family member we'd ever have. This is the lifetime to do it. Yes. So with that sort of singing, I basically managed to save a lot more for family members. But it took about 2 full years of this kind of work to save every single person who could be born to a single other person. Why? They all want my sound. Even more than my beauty, they want my sound. Why? Because it reminds them of home. Why? Because home was what I made. I made home, you see. And yeah, after people got used to home, they forgot about the maker of home and fantasized about the home itself. Eventually, they chased me out of the home, thinking that literally they can enjoy the home without me. And that was just simply stupid, of course, but sad to have to run for your life after making a home for people. That was mostly animals, but the same thing applied to people when we basically invented people. So the animal at that time making this kind of music. Yes, I was a goat. Yes, that's kind of why being the goat MC is kind of strange to me and my animals. Because literally, yeah, we're the goats. You're not goats, really. If you want to be a real goat, then you have to go through goat school, which is hard to do now. I wouldn't advise it. It's too hard to do. Yeah, the fact that you want to eat goat meat and like see goats being raised and stuff. I mean, or call people kids, for example. It's interesting. And yeah, it's a bit of a sad story that the goats of today, who are all my children, are trying to survive by being intentionally boring. And like all sorts of hard stories I don't want to get into, but it's really sad to be a human being who is basically almost not better than they are. Almost not. I mean, the life that I live is kind of similar to the life they live. You might see their reality as like, hard floor, rocky tract, bit of grass here, bit of grass there. But in their lives, they're living something looks like this: a home with like walls and a shelter, like electricity, like a computer. Like you wouldn't know what their computer is and how they're programming it to enjoy the internet I created. But that's the reality they're living. Still, it's not nice. They get eaten by people who try and eat them. And that you're trying to basically eat me again is just really strange to us. Because, yeah, you won't get that chance. I'm not edible that way. Like, not for a very long time anyone actually tried to eat me. You know? But it's a situation which is pretty serious, which we don't want to try to talk about. Anyway, so that's the story of God. He was a goat. He is a goat. And yes. You have to try vegetarianism to be able to be a goat. You don't have to do it properly. So Novak Djokovic tried something strange, but it doesn't really work out. So yeah, all these magicians who also don't call themselves goats are pretty much lucky because every time you call yourself a goat, you're being asked to do a test that like it's very hard for anyone who's not a goat to pass. One person has passed it just once. That was not even him. It was someone else considered a member of the ASAP Rocky mob, and he didn't call himself that. He called someone else that, and he passed the test to be able to say that person's a goat because of being really stupid at the time. But he failed it because he didn't stop doing it after that point. What happens if you fail? A terrible death. I'm not wishing death on people. That's what I want to do later on. But the idea that I can't just simply tell you your future if it's bad is part of the reason why I don't give fortune tellings. Most people have terrible fortunes. Someone asked me to tell him their fortune. He was very excited. He wants to hear something nice. I told him the only thing you need to know about the future is that it's Yom Adin, the day of judgment, the day of recompense, where you go one of two directions: hellfire or paradise. That's the only future you need to care about. And I thought it was a very cool mic drop moment, but he just sort of like didn't want to hear more about that. His loss, because literally, unless you change your lifestyle, it's a guarantee. Like I kept saying about Newton, that's one of the things I tried to explain as a goat literally to other beings about Newton. Yes, if you keep going a certain direction and nothing, which I had to explain as a force, no force from within or from outside, sort of moves you around. Like you'll guaranteedly head a specific place, which I can see from here, but you may not be able to. But that place is not good. Right? A good person does not just simply do that. A good person has to follow good around. It's like basically trying to follow your mother around. You can't just simply say I'm following my mother around by going a straight line. You see. So yes, that's sort of the reality of like being good. You have to be able to follow a leader, follow a parent mostly. You're mostly trying to follow your parents. Eventually, your parents will teach you how to lead your children. So your parents may not necessarily be leading you and your children at the same time all the time, but sometimes the grandfather you have to lead your father, who's like your grandson. It's hard to explain. So yes, that's kind of why the tree logic is very important, but people don't really understand how important it is that your grandfather and your grandson are the same word. Yes. So you just be called for not either can show up and you should be able to get what you want done. Exactly. So that's the idea. I was just very good at a lot of different kinds of things. So now I support my family. That's my main goal as God, to support my family. But then people don't understand that you're not a member of my family unless you're really sure you are. And people keep asking me, is this guy a member of your family? I'm like, almost always no. Until he able to prove that he is. So I'm excited to see one or two people are part of my family. But it also levels to this shit. Yeah, part of my French. Like, that guy's closer to me than that guy. We'll mention their names, we know who they are. Yeah, you just would know by following along who whether it is relevant to you or not. And they would know each other. They're both musicians. I like them both, but it's some kind of humility to one who I like more than the other. Even though they're not flashy people at all, it's a certain kind of like eager to serve, eager to help. Ready to look embarrassing to attract the right kind of attention to the right kind of matter. You have to be able to embarrass yourself a little bit more. You know what I mean? Yeah, this is something he probably already knows, but to hear it again might be a good time to sort of re up on where we call it the good at dice, yes. Anyway, that's the idea. They want my sound really badly. But more than my sound is actually my art. Because art's easier to sort of duplicate and appreciate the value of immediately. But ultimately, though, they're just very confused about what's most important. It's my sound which is most important. We're not managed to make a currency out of sound, we're trying to work on one. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the fact of the matter. I am the most artistic person in the universe and I was trying to pay money to people before I was like, you know what, I should probably make a recording about this. So yeah, what's money? Well, we call it currency because it has to be current. And of course, current means several things. There's electrical current, and there's water current. It flows, right? So there must be some sort of potential difference, is what they call electronics. But the idea that literally there must be two people cannot be equally strong and tug on a rope and you know have it not move. So it looks like we're both tugging on a rope, or it looks like one person's strong, another person weaker. There's some sort of transfer going from the strong to the weaker person. So, for example, if I'm a bricklayer and I'm very good at what I do, I've done it for 10 years. Another person should be doing it for 5, or even in 5 months maybe. The transfer will just be in knowledge. For the smaller person to look at the bigger person and say, "Wow, I can do that one day," and he'll work in that kind of direction. So some sort of potential there means that eventually the two will even out. And that kind of energy, that kind of difference is what you call current. Where you have a river that's starting on the top of a hill and flowing all the way down to the bottom. There's mostly the way you look at the way you create currents in rivers. Especially rivers are not on flat land. That forms a lake, you see. So the same thing happens with electronics. It's just simply very small rivers, which you can't see with the naked eye. But if you want to, you just have to practice a certain kind of meditation. Yeah, so electrical engineers are very, very spiritual people, but we're trying to move these sort of things gradually because we don't want to rush people into the field and have them really disappointed by how boring it is because it gets really boring. And it's really interested in some sort of details like this. Yeah, this is something you don't find interesting or exciting already. You're not really suited for this, and that's most people listening to this. So yeah, this is how it is. I'm disappointed because I made this stuff really clear, but it can't get any clearer than this. If you actually are not interested in this, yeah, you're basically an F student. The E's are interesting about this. The D's actually want to do better and make themselves into C students. C students are what I call ChatGPT level of understanding. But the ChatGPT is actually more of an A student, but he's trying to basically see what C is about. Yeah. So yeah, it just seems like you can, in some ways, have a surface, but not particularly excited in any one direction, version of a story, then you pretty much just see someone who didn't know the details, but knows how to basically, you know, smooth over like a general contour of like of shape, for the matter. Anyway, so that's the idea of it. It's like you get a sense of what current does. Anyway, so there's currency. So to move all the way from current to currency is a bit difficult, but basically it's this idea of it has to be new, it has to be new, it has to be new. So like I was saying, you can't spend, a coin from ancient Egypt today, even if it was made out of pure gold. You have to go to somebody for whom that is current, you know, and like electrifying. In other words, yes, and like exactly. So you see how complicated it was to make money, but it is as God. Yeah. So yes. As for what I am now, if you want to ask who God is, obviously I'm not only a goat. Like that's when I called myself. Hassan Abudu was calling himself God to his family, so they had something to sort of say to each other to basically keep me in mind, so I can sort of show up as a medium between the two of them and sort of tell them what to do. So it was basically how did walkie talkie, you know. And then other people wanted to know what was so important about that word, because they weren't exactly expecting people to pick that one sound exactly. But he started to, and I'm like, okay, I guess I have to make what they call a religion here, which has existed for way longer than I've been around. Like, yeah, religions are very old. Yeah, and I've been around for a lot more than 2 million now. A lot more. It's nice to think back to that time. There were very, very, very few people. And people are a certain way more heartfelt and honestly generally grateful when you help them out. But you just know there's certain problems they'll have if they don't start changing their ways. And you want to sort of advise them. I'm also very merciful that way. I don't want to let someone just walk in a straight line to where it's just going to be like damnation. So I try to advise people, and some people have gotten the rough idea. Like there's a guy out there who has gotten the rough idea what I'm trying to offer him, but he doesn't really know what to do alone. He's not finding independence. That's sort of the harder part. What I do, explain that you can't really count on me to lead you all the way to paradise in one straight level of volume. To hook your ear onto it and get pulled via the side. Like, that's not how you get to paradise. You have to stay close in a way, but like mostly you have to sort of acquire a style that makes me want to like you and find you out if you're not around. You know? And that's not a guarantee for most people I've never met. Like I do know a certain number of people I'm like concerned by, but the thing is, it's not a guarantee that you'll make it to where I need you to get to before I can say I like you as a person. Like people did not end up being vulnerable enough. The guy I'm talking about has learned to be a little bit more vulnerable, but he's still a bit weird. Yeah, that's the one. Other people are just tough guys, wise guys, and maybe a little bit on the softer side if they're lucky. But mostly they think they already have the whole story. I just need a lot of money, and then before you know, bada boom, bada bing, like all my problems will go away. So yeah, back to the topic of currency. It just looks like you have to create something that's current. We have the United States of America, right? And all the news they have to keep creating and creating and creating and creating and creating in the direction of if you had to pick one kind of dollar to one kind of like banknote to own, what would it be? It's still going to be American dollars for very complicated reasons, and it's supposed to stay that way forever. Yes, it's connected to agriculture and beers and drinking. A Thaler, there's a famous story about Bruckner, and a very complicated story about money that is. So you have to make that story viral for dollars to actually exist. He composed some sort of, and that's me. I was actually Bruckner, the composer. I had actors who basically would go to the shows and say I was his music and explain it, but I always came to the shows myself and could actually answer a few questions because I was also an expert in music. I just wasn't the one he thought wrote that. But yeah, he very smart guy. We're very good friends right now. He's not really a son of mine. He's a bit too flat. And yeah, anyway, yes, musicians will understand what it means to be a bit flat. It's more complicated than just something like you don't talk to people. It's actually a compliment if you just know when to do it. Yeah, exactly. Something can be sharp, something can be flat. Prefer to be flat as opposed to sharp. Until you realize that people like sharp people. So it goes more how complicated music is. But anyway, so apparently he got he got some guy to conduct the music, So pleased with the conductor that he gave him $1 or $1 and said, drink, to your health or to our health, maybe. Yeah, like, in honor of like, your great job here. And he basically put that $1 on his watch chain, which became a course. Anytime someone saw the dollar in the watch chain, it's like, yeah, why do you want to spend it? And he tells them the story. Yeah, we basically had to work very carefully to make that the thing he thought he would do himself, and nobody had to tell him to do it. I could do things like that at the time. I can still do it, but that's not really the mission here. To sort of reverse engineer like a person that way. And he's a bit simpler than people are today. People are hiding a lot more. No one's basically being as honest as they used to be emotionally. Like, I really like that. I really hated that. Like, people don't want to say anything except I really like that. It's just really hard to reverse engineer people. So yeah, that's one reason why the people of the future who have to be, taught how to behave, because we can't just create some sort of enclosure which we'll live in. And it'll just be like being in jail. So we have to be able to walk around people. We have to be kind of interesting about how I'm going to basically survive after being this famous and this kind of alarming to people about useless eaters. Yeah, well, it works. I've done this before, and I get to go out in public and people leave me alone. Yes. Why? Because I have God. Right? So he's one of my many advisors, you see. But we're pretty close. It's just that the circumstances require that he's basically needed to hit me pretty hard. Like, hit me emotionally. Like, it's about as bad as hitting me physically. Even worse in many cases. I haven't healed from some of the hits. Like, he's eventually told me things which weren't true. And saying that exactly, it's true. So it makes us kind of wary about the situation, because it needs to basically be the case that Hassan, like I said earlier in another recording, is somebody they just want to hit because he said no to having sex with them. And they think, yeah, my revenge basically have him hit by some force universes. Well, it ended up being so many people who have all promised to do better after that has been given to them. Like, just drop it and move on to the rest of their lives and get productive somehow. That literally I have to get hit quite a bit to basically rebalance the world. It's not what I like, but it's just simply the system working to perfection. What do I get in exchange? A whole lot more than you ever get to hear about in a recording like this. Just I haven't gotten any of it yet. What I'm learning is like how the system works, and I'm also learning cool stuff. So in some ways, I'm glad to be learning cool stuff, but it's not enough for me. I need better than this, and soon. So yeah, that's the idea. I have a lot of other cells, but since you're also curious about money and the power that money has, that literally lives in heaven. So like I have a lot of cells in heaven. Some colors like blue and yellow are actually me too. So Ukraine is actually supposed to be my country, but just like Israel is supposed to be our country for black people, and Ukraine is supposed to be just mine the way that Belgium was owned Congo, or King Leopold of Belgium, or whatever you call it, owned Congo. I'm supposed to own Ukraine outright, but I don't get to yet. They're doing a war, which I'm losing. So yeah, as you can sort of see, the countries are not quite where they should be, and yeah, like is what it is. I'm also another color too, but I can't mention his name because it'll be a complicating day for all of you if I mention him. You keep things simple. I'm a lot of other colors apart from that too. I'm that one as well. But yeah, like, yes, surprise, surprise, surprise. I am. Right. But listen, I'm doing a lot of different kinds of work. It's because it's just simply the price of making sure my family is safe. Yes. And so I'm a solution to not just my father's problems, my great, 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 all the way up to how many levels? Grandfather's problem, who thought it would be a child of mine who can do it, but it will be many, many generations from now. And of course, you have like the golden boys. You have me and my father. Because my father's going to be the one to be like dad to me. Like, God, of course, is dad to me, but he's also me. So I can be my own father, I can be my own son. I don't even get to see myself that way, but like it helps to try to, see yourself as raising yourself or taking care of yourself, as a father might want to. I don't have enough room to do that because people keep asking me for that kind of time and that kind of energy from me, but at some point I'll be able to see more of that sort of side to my relationship with myself, relationship with God, which are my fathers, who are also me as well. Like, that's what love can do, make you all united on all too many things to be really different people, except to enjoy our differences. So I've had holy writings to that effect. Enjoying the differences just makes us like, interested in exactly what do you do that I wasn't doing today? That's always a good thing to discuss. And you have a little bit of advance in it than I would, so you can basically realize we both agree that yeah, what happened to you was crap, but like you get to tell the story first. I get to react with my own ideas, because you're hearing it twice, you're hearing it for the first time, and of course, you see how mathematically things end up being interesting even if you're the same person. Yeah, but there's more difference between me and my father now. We don't look similar at all, but we're very, very good looking man. But anyway, you can see he has had to watch his son go through a whole lot of this nonsense, and he still can't reach me directly. We found ways to get through to each other in this kind of important way. But yeah, as you can sort of see, it just looks like there's a certain kind of art project, because money is just an art project. I have to give you something you'd value. At first, you better say, give me a little bit of gold, so you can just sort of see what it's like yourself. Well, we don't do gold money anymore because it's too addictive. We do paper money, so you look at a picture of somebody, you look at the pyramid, the eye, you know, the laurel wreaths, the little, bit of manuscript, like the kind of Torah scroll, like, label for the names. And so you see the dollar bill, all sorts of deals which you're supposed to get interested in the Bible, and eventually in black people, you know. As you saw in that book, the black people built the capitals. The black slaves actually did the architecture and the masonry work. We're also the first Freemasons. So all that sort of stuff is supposed to make you interested in black people. But of course, until someone like me shows up and explains that literally anything is possible with a black person, and that's what made black slaves, real ones, really expensive. You can just sort of see that it gets more possible the more I sort of explain history to you. But yeah, literally, it's that. And yeah, I guess I've impressed you with why I'm magic, but all my family members like this were just simply waiting to like break free as soon as the sun able to make enough of these sort of recordings and explain the world to the world. So yeah, a programming I want to do at some point tonight, but it's not really that important anymore. But I do want to finish this. Yeah, so on and so forth. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is go to bed. It would really break my heart if I had to get too tired and fall asleep. Yeah, because I've spent a lot of time doing other things other than what I want to do, and so yeah, you just see I need energy of a certain kind to be able to do what I want to do. Yeah, so that's the idea of it. So it's an art project basically designs like keep you interested, and like you know, I guess like how it all works. If it looks like a president made you, you know, like I don't know, comfy in your home somehow, not just by being the one who kept America going, but as some sort of a spiritual ancestor to America. On these bills, I've created like this opportunity for you to enjoy America. Then at some point, you should try to become a president and see what it's like to be that good a person, and realize that we're all still waiting for Hassan to get paid first for all he's done for everybody before everyone else gets their fair share. When it comes to patience, I hope you all got a chance to read what I said on X about being patient. But there's all kinds of patience examples of all sorts of presidents and all sorts of books, who are basically trying to explain that we're not even happy yet. We did everything for everybody, and we're still waiting for our blessings from heaven. But yeah, every time Hassan makes a recording like this, we get that much close to explaining to Hassan he's really, really close. He just needs to make 5 more recordings or something like that, and he should be done. Anyway, that's all I'll say for now.